Hey, welcome to Mikey's Video Game Madness. Today we're playing Heavenly Sword on the PlayStation 3. This was one of PlayStation 3's earlier games, so this was supposed to be one of their killer apps. That and Lair. Lair didn't fare so well. This game got a lot of ridicule for not being that long. I might know why that might have happened though, because there seems to be a shitload of, for the time, high quality cutscenes. They actually had Andy Serkis to actually play the main villain in motion cap him. If you're not familiar who that is, that's Gollum in the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy. Who knew Hobbit was going to be a trilogy? That was one book. But he also played Caesar in the new Planet of the Apes movies. So he's pretty high profile. Then he's in the new Star Wars movies as like the Emperor type villain. I can't think of his name offhand because I've only seen the movie a couple of times. So excuse me if I don't know all the new characters' names. I do know the popular characters. Like I know Rey, Finn, Poe, and then the characters from the original Star Wars and BB-8 or whatever. And Kylo Ren. That's really... I'm only missing like the main bad guy alien thing. I keep on thinking Darth Plagueis, but I think that's who they think that might be. I was thinking Snoke, but I think that's the main, like, that's the Grand Moff Tarkin type character. And yes, episode 7 is a lot like episode 4, or which purists say the original Star Wars, the one that came out in the 70s, the first Star Wars movie to come out before it was even called A New Hope. But now it's called A New Hope or whatever. But I believe that they had their own movie, but even though this is unrelated, but welcome to my channel where we talk about unrelated shit in the game. I believe they made it somewhat familiar for people who liked the original Star Wars films, just because there's a lot of people that didn't like the prequels, and I guess they wanted to prove that they knew how to make what was familiar. They did some original things in the movie with the characters and stuff, and I do think it's kind of cool that the main protagonist is a girl. It's different. That's not like the only difference. So any of you people that think that I'm not for the new Ghostbuster movie because it's an all-female cast, it's wrong, because I think it's awesome that they had like a girl be the main protagonist, and you know, it adds a different perspective because, you know, sometimes females react differently than guys, and she's pretty tough and stuff like that. That's another reason why I like Ghost in the Shell, because the Major and that's like a super tough female character, and they don't really follow the archetypes and all that stuff. So it's entertaining to see a different take, but there were a lot of familiar things. I'm not going to lie. I have a feeling the next movie is going to be really different, and I'm not shitting on George Lucas. I mean, I would have been curious what George Lucas would have done with the sequels. I think the problem with the prequels, and if you watch Star Wars A New Hope, there are a lot of discussions in the film that I didn't really pick up on until I saw like the prequel trilogy, where they're talking about politics and stuff like that. I don't necessarily think that's the way to go, but that was the George Lucas directed Star Wars film in the original trilogy, so maybe that's somewhere that he wanted to go, and he didn't know if he was going to be able to get the sequel, so he couldn't elaborate that much. So that's personally where he wanted to go, and I just think story-wise, you kind of knew what was happening in the prequel trilogy, and I guess in this new trilogy, for me personally, it's just kind of interesting because I have no idea what's going to happen storyline-wise, and even though there was a limited amount, because you know you don't see other types of spaceships beside the original X-wings. You see the Millennium Falcon, Kylo Ren shuttle ship or whatever the fuck it's called, and you just see TIE fighters and X-wings. If you watch the original, and you see Star Destroyers and stuff, and then the Star Killer base, which originally I think that's what Luke Skywalker was going to be called. Also, Star Killer is the main protagonist in Force Unleashed, but that used to be a canon game, but I don't know. I think that falls under like Star Wars Legends now, which is Disney's nice way of saying it doesn't count. But anyway, yeah, I really liked it. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings, and some people liked it. I enjoyed it because it was an enjoyable film, and it felt new and different at the same time, and it was enjoyable. I mean, when the prequels came out, Episode 1, I still have trouble digesting. It grew on me a little bit as time goes on, but I know a lot of people dislike Episode 2 a lot for some reason, but I actually dislike the first one the most, even though it had cool moments, stuff like that. I think they're enjoyable films. All the movies are kind of hard to watch on Blu-ray, to be honest with you. I think that they took into consideration that like film grain from watching in the theaters and being blown up, I guess, and watching it on VHS or even DVD like would wash out some of the imperfections. But even with the prequel trilogy, like the furniture and stuff like that in the film reminds me of like a Sega CD game where they couldn't afford like a real set, and they kind of drew in like the furniture or digitally rendered it, and you'll see that in full motion video games on the PlayStation and PC games as well. And then the original trilogy, some of the matte painting effects, and I've noticed this in Indiana Jones as well, and I love the films. I'm not picking on them, but when I was getting the Blu-ray, I guess I was expecting stuff to like blow my mind, and the picture quality is great. Like, I wouldn't take it back for anything, but there was a lot of matte shots that I normally wouldn't see as matte shots that I would just accept as backgrounds. When I watched them again, it looked clearly like matte shots. So I fully understand why George Lucas wanted to go back and change some things. I think when the special edition came out, when they re-released the original film, CGI wasn't quite there. If you remember what Jabba the Hutt looked like, he looked really weird. But when they eventually, it took to the point where they got the DVD and Blu-ray, and they finally redid his CGI and stuff like that. It actually looked like Jabba the Hutt from Return of the Jedi, except he moved a lot better. But yeah, this all came from Andy Serkis or whatever, and the only other thing I was going to say is I wish there was more spaceships in the newer game, different type. I mean, the newer film, like different types, because there weren't as many as like Star Wars: A New Hope, which was the first one, because the first one had bombers and all that stuff. And since, spoiler alert, but all you got to do is look at the fucking poster. Like when they do an attack run, all you see is X-wings and the standard TIE fighters, and that's it. Although I do love the design of the new X-wings and the TIE fighters. I apologize if I say his name wrong. Like, they copied the design from Ralph McQuarrie. I hope I'm saying his name right. Where the front of the X-wing engines were actually split in half, where in the original X-wings were like full engines. Hopefully I explained that right, but they borrowed some stuff from like the older concept art, which I thought was cool. And I like the little radar dish and the dual seated TIE fighters where there's actually a gunner in the back. I thought that was cool, and I like how they kept, gosh, I can't think, they kept in mind what happened in Return of the Jedi and stuff, where the satellite dish off of the Millennium Falcon got busted off, and they have like a new flat one. Although I still like the the 1980s satellite dish, or 70s, or whatever era you want to say that the satellite dish is from. But anyway, yeah, so that's all I'll have to say about this. I probably should start talking about the game. If this game looks pixelated at all, it's because for some reason this game got cropped on the sides. This is a PlayStation 3 game. That's an issue I was struggling with a long time, and finally figured out a way to overcome it. This video is so old, it's been sitting in my hard drive for a long time, and I just didn't get to it. So I don't know if I did what I was supposed to, or it's an old video, because I honestly can't remember exactly when I recorded it, because there's a lot of cutscenes in this game, and the game's sort of okay. It's not going to blow your mind. It's fun. It's a fun playthrough. But it's not going to be, at least in my opinion, one of these games you're going to look back so nostalgically on, unless you have a separate memory to add to go with it. Ninja Theory is actually an awesome developer. If you haven't played, and I wouldn't say not play this game. I think it's fun for what it is, but I feel like they put more emphasis on the cutscenes, and I feel like maybe this game could have had some more development time to make the AI a little bit sharper, because sometimes you have guys just standing there even when there's no other guys left doing absolutely nothing, and the battle system feels really fluid and great, and when you have a nice little combo going on. But I wish they worked more on like the counter attacks and the blocking and stuff on that. But later on, Ninja Theory went on to make Enslaved, which I think is by far my favorite game that they've made to date. I don't think I've made a video on it. If I made a video on it, it might have been a demo, and if I did, it was a long time ago, which is why I don't remember. It might have been one of the first videos I ever did if I did it, but I'm thinking I didn't do it. I probably should. That's my favorite Ninja Theory game, and I really do like their reboot of Devil May Cry. I think that was great. But yeah, this is just a hack and slash game. At the time, I thought it was one of the best looking games out there. You know, it blew my mind graphic wise, but now it just feels unfinished. A lot of times you're walking around sometimes for the game to catch up with you. Also, I would highly suggest that you turn off the motion controls, because this game forces you to use them in weird ways, like with aiming and shooting projectiles, and you actually can steer the projectiles. So if I were you, one of the first things I would do is turn off the six-axis motion controls. I mean, you can get this game for dirt cheap. I've seen it for $2 or $3. So for $2 or $3, you can't beat it. I mean, you'll have a good time. You're just gonna accept some of the flaws, and I think the older we get and the more games that we play, some of these flaws may stick out, and we might be a little bit more picky than we were when this game came out. When this game came out, I paid for it full price, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I thought it was one of the best games I ever played at that time. Well, of this genre, one of the best. I think God of War 2 is either coming out or already been out, and I already played God of War 1. To me, that's like, in my opinion, it's still kind of like the best 3D action adventure game ever made, in my opinion. I think that the Arkham Knight series took a new take on the 3D beat 'em up genre with its counterattacks, but I think God of War does it differently and has a little bit more strategy. I think it feels better between the two, but they're two completely different games, and I get why both combat systems are fun. But if you made me pick, I think God of War feels the best, although Batman feels really good too. Batman Arkham Knight was one of my favorite games that came out last year. Beside Metal Gear Solid 5, I played the most of that. I might have played Batman more. I need to finish the DLC content on that. I just haven't haven't wanted to invest in the time because I know it would take a bit of time, and I haven't played it for a while, and there's little idiosyncrasies that you have to know to counter the bad guys, and I kind of have to relearn it. This would be one of those segments that you would have to use the 6X motion control, kind of like a Wii controller, but it's not nearly as sensitive and it's awkward, so I turned it off. But it's kind of cool that they added the variety of this. But I had a 360. It Red Ring to death on me, and that was pretty devastating. And at the time, I was really frustrated because I saved up quite a bit of money to get that Xbox 360, and I had a friend that just died on me, and I think somebody else's died too, and it felt like too much of a coincidence. And I was usually a PlayStation person, and I remember already being frustrated because I gave up my original Xbox, and I had quite a large library for the original Xbox to get that 360, and I just got so frustrated. And I'm like, fuck this, I'm just gonna get a PlayStation. I know the PlayStation, it'll play all my PlayStation 2 games in high definition, which they don't do anymore, which is a freaking crime. I'd be on cloud 9 if they just had some sort of emulator that you could put discs on the PlayStation 4 and have them upscaled, and maybe some discs don't work, I don't know. They're making you re-buy a lot of these games, but some of these games will never be on the PlayStation Store, which means unless I'm playing on PlayStation 2, I'll never be able to play them again. And knowing just what a slight upgrade on the with playing on a 60 gig original PlayStation 3, it just made the game so much better. And even going back to the PlayStation 2, it's just not the same, and I imagine the games look even better on PlayStation 4. Of course, they're programming the emulation specifically for those games, but I would just like some native emulation going on. That would make me so happy. I know that they're capable of doing it. I think they're scared that not every game's gonna work, and I know that there's some games that people are gonna rebuy again, and it is, after all, a business. But man, that would make me so happy if I could just put in some of my oldest and play them, because some of these games, and not have it like the 360 where they have to get permission. I just wish they had like some standard emulator that may or may not play your games. If it doesn't play all my games, I have original PlayStation 2, and I'll just suck it up and play on that. And component cables and upscaling from the TV, it does work, it's functional, but I bet it would look even better on PlayStation 4. And I would like less clutter with the wires and stuff like that, but I mean, beggars can't be choosers. But it would be nice. I think they have the ability to do that. Will they do it? I don't know. I doubt it, to be honest with you. I think they're just going to continue to sell games from the stores, but there's some companies that lost the license to some of the games that I really like, are the companies might have went out of business, and that was it, you know, and I can't ever play a new version of that game made for the PlayStation Network store. So, you know, I have to play those on the PlayStation 2. So some emulation would be welcome. I know I probably said the same thing 3 times in a row. This video is all over the place. And I guess it's partially because this game's more fun to play than actually talk about. And that's why I was kind of reluctant to actually do the video. It's just standard hack and slash. You're just gonna fight bad guys all the time, and then occasionally you get the shooting levels. And I think she eventually requires she acquires the ability to throw discs and stuff, and you can steer those around. There's really simple puzzles, but beside that, it's a nice looking game. We unfortunately don't get to see the nicer looking parts of the game because I didn't want to spend 2 hours like getting to that part. It probably didn't take that long, but you know, I don't know how interesting this video is. I know my commentary is probably awesome in very small doses. I always make them longer than I would like to, but I think this is overall a really fun game. It's just flawed. It was an early PlayStation exclusive. I think they wanted to get it out. Xbox's thing at this time was like Gears of War. I think people on PlayStation were waiting for Lair, which ended up a catastrophe, basically because they relied on the 6-axis motion controls, which were horrible on the PlayStation 3. They weren't very responsive. Later on, they patched the game where you could use the controller, so if I came across that game, I wouldn't mind playing it with the patch. I think it would be cool or whatever, but yeah, it's a nice early PlayStation 3 game, a nice action game. Definitely try Ninja Theory's Enslaved or Devil May Cry reboot. I like Enslaved better, but this is a good game for what it's worth. It's fun. Nothing to blow your mind, but thank you guys so much for watching and hanging in there with me and my commentary. And I hope you're all doing well. Thank you, and take care. Bye.
If you want to, like, comment, and subscribe! Thanks for watching!